The 2016 US presidential election sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. Donald Trump's victory signaled a dramatic shift in American foreign policy. His America First doctrine challenged the post-World War II consensus. This doctrine prioritized American interests above all else. It questioned the value of traditional alliances and multilateral institutions. Trump's rhetoric was often confrontational. He accused allies of freeloading on American security guarantees. He questioned the relevance of NATO in the 21st century. His words and actions created deep uncertainty about the future of the transatlantic relationship. The impact was immediate. European leaders expressed concern about Trump's unpredictability. They worried about his commitment to NATO's collective defense pledge. The transatlantic relationship, once considered the bedrock of the liberal international order, was entering uncharted territory. Trump's America First approach represented a fundamental break from the past. It signaled a move away from multilateralism and towards a more unilateralist approach. This shift had profound implications for US-European relations, setting the stage for a period of tension and uncertainty. The central to Trump's foreign policy was a transactional approach. He viewed international relations as a zero-sum game. He believed that for America to win, others had to lose. This approach stood in stark contrast to the more cooperative approach favored by previous administrations. Trump's transactional approach was evident in his dealings with both allies and adversaries. He demanded concrete deliverables in exchange for American support. He showed little patience for diplomacy or compromise. This approach alienated many traditional allies who viewed it as disrespectful and short-sighted. The emphasis on transactional diplomacy extended to trade. Trump imposed tariffs on goods from allies and adversaries alike. He withdrew the US from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement. These actions disrupted global trade flows and strained relationships with key partners. Trump's transactional approach to diplomacy represented a significant departure from the norms of international relations. It prioritized short-term gains over long-term relationships. This approach had a destabilizing effect on the global order, undermining trust and cooperation. Few areas felt the impact of Trump's America First policy more acutely than NATO. The cornerstone of transatlantic security for decades, NATO became a frequent target of Trump's ire. He repeatedly questioned its relevance and criticized European allies for not spending enough on defense. Trump's demands for increased defense spending created significant tension within the alliance. While most European nations agreed on the need to invest more in defense, they bristled at Trump's bullying tactics. They argued that security was not just about spending targets, but also about political solidarity and shared values. The Trump administration's approach to NATO went beyond rhetoric. It withdrew the US from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, a key arms control agreement with Russia. This move raised concerns about a new arms race in Europe. Trump's approach to NATO left the alliance shaken and uncertain about its future. His actions undermined trust among allies and raised doubts about America's commitment to European security. The long-term consequences of this approach are still unfolding. Trump's foreign policy was shaped by a worldview that saw China as America's primary competitor and Russia as a potential partner in containing China's rise. This approach marked a significant departure from the traditional bipartisan consensus in Washington, which viewed Russia as a strategic adversary. Trump's desire to improve relations with Russia, however, was often at odds with his administration's actions. The US continued to impose sanctions on Russia for its annexation of Crimea and interference in the 2016 election. This contradiction created confusion and fueled accusations of inconsistency in American foreign policy. Despite these contradictions, Trump's approach to Russia had a significant impact on US-European relations. European leaders were deeply skeptical of Trump's overtures to Putin. They viewed Russia as a threat, not a partner. Trump's willingness to overlook Russia's transgressions created a rift between the US and its European allies. Trump's approach to China and Russia reflected his transactional worldview and his belief in American dominance. This approach had a destabilizing effect on the international system. undermining traditional alliances and emboldening authoritarian powers. Nowhere were the consequences of Trump's foreign policy more apparent than in Eastern Europe. Trump's approach to the region was characterized by a mix of transactional deals and a disregard for democratic norms, which had a profound impact on US relations with Poland and Ukraine. In Poland, Trump found a willing partner in the country's right-wing government. He agreed to increase the US military presence in Poland, a move welcomed by Warsaw as a deterrent against Russian aggression. However, this move came at a cost. Trump used the deployment as leverage to pressure Poland to increase its defense spending and to align itself more closely with US interests. Ukraine, on the other hand, found itself caught in the crosshairs of Trump's transactional approach. Trump viewed Ukraine as a corrupt country of little strategic value to the US. He withheld military aid to Ukraine in an attempt to pressure the Ukrainian government to investigate his political rivals. Trump's actions in Eastern Europe underscored his willingness to prioritize his own political interests over US national security concerns. His transactional approach undermined US credibility and emboldened authoritarian leaders in the region. Section 6. A wall in the Atlantic, immigration and ideological divides. Trump's America First agenda extended beyond security and economics to encompass social and cultural issues as well. His restrictive immigration policies and his rhetoric on nationalism and sovereignty resonated with right-wing populist movements in Europe, deepening the ideological divide across the Atlantic. Trump's decision to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement on climate change and his skepticism of multilateral institutions further alienated European leaders. They viewed these actions as proof that the United States was abdicating its global leadership role and undermining efforts to address common challenges. Trump's rhetoric on immigration, in particular, struck a nerve in Europe. His decision to ban travel from several Muslim-majority countries and his administration's policy of separating migrant children from their parents at the US-Mexico border sparked outrage and condemnation from European leaders and citizens alike. Trump's presidency exposed a growing values gap between the United States and its European allies. His embrace of nationalist populist rhetoric and his disdain for multilateralism clashed with the more liberal, internationalist outlook of many European countries. Section 7. Echoes of Munich, A World Adrift. The 2025 Munich Security Conference highlighted the transatlantic rift from the Trump era. European leaders voiced concerns about US foreign policy and called for renewed multilateralism. The backdrop was global instability with rising China, resurgent Russia, and Middle East conflicts. Trump's absence signaled disinterest in traditional allies, sending Vice President Pence instead. The conference underscored challenges in a world defined by great power competition and retreat from multilateralism. Section 8. Miami Beach Incident, a case of mistaken identity. A man has been arrested for shooting two individuals on Miami Beach, believing they were Palestinian. The suspect, who has not been named, approached the victims and opened fire, injuring both men. The victims were taken to a nearby hospital where they are currently receiving treatment for their injuries. Miami Beach police have stated that the shooting appears to be a hate crime, driven by the suspect's mistaken belief about the victim's ethnicity. The incident has sparked outrage and calls for unity within the community, emphasizing the need for tolerance and understanding. Legal proceedings are underway and the suspect faces multiple charges, including attempted murder and hate crime offenses. Community leaders are urging for stronger measures to combat hate crimes and ensure justice for the victims. Miami Beach police are also reviewing their protocols to better address and prevent such incidents in the future. As the community comes to terms with this tragic event, the focus remains on healing and fostering a safer, more inclusive environment. The question remains, how can society effectively address and prevent hate crimes to ensure a safer future for all? The answer depends on the collective actions of individuals, communities, and law enforcement working together towards a common goal. President Trump's approach to Russia has been a subject of intense debate and scrutiny. His strategy appears to oscillate between confrontation and conciliation. On one hand, the administration has imposed sanctions and expelled diplomats, while on the other, Trump has often praised Putin and called for better relations. This dual approach raises questions about the true objectives of Trump's Russia policy. One theory suggests that Trump's strategy aims to break the Sino-Russian alliance. By driving a wedge between Moscow and Beijing, the US could weaken a formidable geopolitical bloc. This would be particularly advantageous in the context of the US-China trade war. However, the effectiveness of this strategy is debatable. Russia and China have deepened their cooperation in recent years, forming alliances through organizations like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Their partnership spans military, economic, and technological domains. Moreover, US actions in other regions, such as increased military presence in Eastern Europe, may inadvertently push Russia and China closer together. The Trump administration's policies could thus have the opposite effect of what is intended. Analysts remain divided on whether Trump's approach will succeed in weakening the Sino-Russian alliance. The complex interplay of global geopolitics makes it difficult to predict the long-term outcomes. What is clear, however, is that the stakes are high, and the decisions made today will shape the geopolitical landscape for years to come. Will Trump's strategy lead to a realignment of global powers? Or will it strengthen the very alliances it seeks to disrupt? The answer lies in the unfolding dynamics of international relations. Section 9. Looking ahead. Uncertainties and opportunities in a post-Trump world. The post-Trump era presents both challenges and opportunities for the transatlantic relationship. The United States and its European allies face common threats like climate change, pandemics, and authoritarianism. Addressing these challenges requires close cooperation and a renewed commitment to multilateralism. The Biden administration aims to rebuild ties with European allies and restore America's global leadership. It remains to be seen if these efforts will overcome the damage done during the Trump era. The transatlantic relationship has weathered storms before and could emerge stronger. This requires a concerted effort to rebuild trust and reaffirm shared values. The future of the transatlantic relationship remains uncertain. The stakes are high and choices made will have profound consequences for the world.